Okay, ready to go? This is Jack Griffin from Cup Experience. We're here in Gothenburg, Sweden for the Louis Vuitton America's Cup World Series. And the racing is over. We're just about to have the skippers and sailors come in for their interviews, and we'll be talking to all of them in just a moment. Okay, so this is Jack Griffin from Cup Experience. I'm here with Ian Murray, the regatta director. Ian, tell us a little bit about just the conditions that were out there today, and how do you set a course when the conditions are what they are and the shape of the course that we have here?
Well, the conditions were light winds today, which makes it testing because the performance range of the AC45s, now they're foiling, is quite extreme from the slowest to the fastest. So to try to get a course that is fair and honest to the competitors and also satisfies the requirement of working in with the television window we have, and to get it home on 25 minutes, it's a challenging day. So, with bordering on the wind limit a lot of the day, it was a bit of a nail-biter today.
And what variables do you have in terms of being able to vary the course in terms of number of legs, where you set the marks? How do you handle that to fit the time limit?
Well, look, all of that's quite difficult. Now we're on moored marks. In the past, where we had movable marks, it was, we had a lot more flexibility. But now we're on moored marks. Our options for shortening the course or moving the course are very limited. So, as in the lighter breezes, there's probably some options. In the windier days, there's almost no options. So, look, it's very much, we're relying on our experience to get it right and sort of, looking in the sky to make a prediction on whether the breeze, and, we started the last race in 8 and finished in 5, and that performance drop off in that range is quite extreme. So, we ran a little bit long, but, we got 2 races in today, which was a blessing.
Quite an achievement to get 2 races in. So the AC45Fs, when they're not foiling, how much drag do the boards add, and how does that affect the speed when they're in displacement mode?
Well, I think when they can't fly 2 hulls, the drag is immense, and the boats are noticeably slower than they used to be. If they can get up on on 1 hull, it's not too bad. I don't think the performance is that dramatically less. But then, of course, when they get up on the foil, it's warp factor.
Yeah, then they're off to the races. Now, there was a big mix-up in terms of the leaderboard in the last race. We saw Team France winding up in 3rd place again, which they've done a couple of times. What are you seeing in the fleet in terms of how these guys are mastering the boats, given the small amount of training time they've been able to get in them?
Look, I think they're learning the boats and understanding. There's a lot of variables: wing settings, cambers, twists, and then you add in daggerboard controls, rudder, rake elevations, crew combinations. There's infinite number of variables here for them to wrestle with, and some of them are dialing in, and you saw Artemis, good start, dialed in, gone. And New Zealand obviously did a nice job in the last race as well. So it's interesting, we started the last race, the last double points race, 3 boats tied for the lead. I think anyone could have won. Winner takes all in the end.
Yeah, pretty exciting day. Looking forward to Bermuda. How do the teams get ready for Bermuda? How much training time are they allowed to have, and how do you get ready for Bermuda?
Well, we're gathering data all the time on these boats. The boats are new to us as well as the competitors. So, luckily we track them. We have a good database of speed, so we can start to build, some performance indicators for us to work with. So that's what we need to do, but I'm quite happy. Our software's working well. We started 4 races on time. We finished them all in good time, and we had good races. So our little team on the water, we've had a good week.
Yeah, have to be happy with that. Well, listen, thanks for your time. We'll let you get away, and we'll see you in Bermuda.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
So, hi, I'm here with Nathan Outridge. Nathan, a bit of an up and down day today. Talk us through the day.
Yeah, it was obviously very light out there, and so starts are going to be quite critical, because I think once you get a little bit ahead in that light air, you can sail away from the fleet as we did in race 1. We really nailed the trigger pull and had a really good deploy on the code 0 and got across that first stage in a really nice spot. And we just knew that the further you went to the boundary, the safer it was going to be. And then when everyone jibed around behind us, we just did a nice jibe, and everyone had a little look back and focused on what we needed to do, and we got away. And it was really nice to put a full race together. And we were pretty excited about race 2 and had a very similar start strategy. And unfortunately, when we needed to deploy the code 0, it never came, and everyone went ahead of us. It was just a miscommunication on board, and jib sheet was wrapped on the winch instead of the 0 sheet, and these things happen, and especially when you don't get a whole lot of training in that light air. And then we were playing catch up from there. We did a good job to get back into the race, but we had a tight cross with the French at the top mark, and we took the more conservative option and tacked and went to the left mark, and it was a huge loss. And from there, France went on to get 3rd. So the second race could have been a lot better, and unfortunately, it wasn't a good one at all.
Okay, and now looking forward, there's one more regatta for this year. How do you get ready for Bermuda?
Well, you're not allowed to sail the boats between now and Bermuda because they're all getting packed up here and going straight to Bermuda. And I think we're only allowed to sail on the Friday before the event. So, for us, we're going to go back to San Francisco and continue sailing our turbo there. And, sort of our mind shifts a bit back to research and development on our America's Cup boat. But, there's plenty that we've learnt this week. We had some windy races, some light races, and we got a few more races to watch back on video and make notes, analyse, what everyone else was doing today. Because when you're out there racing on your own, you're kind of focusing on yourself. But, we could watch our race back twice and then watch it from every other boat's perspective and try and learn from what everyone else is doing. Because, you can't go sailing to learn, so you got to watch this amazing TV production back. And I think that's what we're going to do over the next couple of months.
Okay, so now the turbo has gone back to San Francisco. When does it come back to Bermuda again?
We're probably not going to get back there till next year. Not sure exactly when yet, but our base is all set up there, and we've been working on the boat there, and we know the weather's going to be good at the end of summer. So we're going to make use of the next few months to do some more sailing, and we'll get it back over to Bermuda at some stage next year.
Okay, Nathan, great. Thanks very much.
All right, cheers.
Yeah. Good to see you. So this is Jack Griffin together with Ben Ainsley. Ben, talk us through the start of both races, but in particular the first one.
The start in the first race, we were actually in a really nice position, holding back a little bit, and we just didn't accelerate well enough through the bad air of the other guys, and ended up late. And when you're behind at the leeward end, the whole fleet rolls over you, as you know, and so it's a very tough position. So it wasn't a great start for us and put us on the back foot. But I thought that as a team we fought hard all day in difficult conditions, and whilst it didn't really go our way, we hung on to a podium finish, which in the scheme of things is a good result.
Okay, it's nice to be on the podium here, but how much do you focus on the regatta, and how much do you focus on the whole series, where there's some points on the line for eventually the America's Cup?
Yeah, it's a really good point. Each of these races counts. So, yes, we were concentrating on ultimately trying to win these events and be on the podium, but we're conscious that we need to make these races count, fight for every place, and that's really what we're trying to do.
And now how do you get ready for Bermuda? One more regatta this year. How do you get ready for it?
Well, it's a little bit out of our hands in the fact that all of the teams are only limited to 2 days training in these boats. So we go back to Portsmouth. We have some development work to do with our testing boat. We'll try as much as we can to prepare ourselves for Bermuda, and then get out there and look forward to sailing in the conditions out there. And we love Bermuda as a venue, love racing there, and really excited about it.
Okay, great. So in 2016 we go back to Portsmouth again. Apparently we're going to hear about Chicago very soon. How many regattas do you expect to have in 2016?
I think potentially we could see 5 or 6 events. Certainly we have Portsmouth, New York, potentially Chicago. sorry, definitely Chicago, potentially New York, maybe in another event in Asia. This event again would be great in Sweden and potentially France. So we, as competitors, we want to be out there and race. We really enjoy these competitions, and hopefully we can build on that as we move forward. So I think it's important for the future of the Cup and the America's Cup World Series to really start building a great circuit.
Okay, great. And now, when do we get to see T2?
Yeah, well, that's our second testing boat, which we've been developing, and all of our systems as we move forwards will be coming into our race boat. So we're working on getting those right, but it'll be in a pretty near future. We'll have that boat on the water, and yeah, from a design element, we're really excited about that.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Best of luck the rest of the way in.
Thanks, Jack. Bye.
Hi, this is Jack Griffin, Cup Experience with Jimmy Spithill. Tough day at the office today.
Yeah, it was a tough day. You know, obviously we didn't feel that fast out there, to be honest. I think we've got quite a bit of work to do on our light air performance. But, you know, great to be on the podium. You know, second place. Disappointing to the Kiwis to win it, though. I'm not going to lie to you. But, you know, they deserved it. They sailed really well today. You know, they were the most consistent.
Yeah, actually, they haven't had a finish lower than third in the whole series. How much do you? I know you love to win a regatta, you love to win every race, but how much do you focus on the series, where there are points that are on the table for the qualifiers and eventually the tiebreak that could decide who gets the bonus point going into the America's Cup?
Well, that's what's great about this series, is that you are racing for something. You know, it's not just a trophy. We're racing for a serious bonus point in the America's Cup, and we're going to do everything we can to get that point. You know, we know we've got to improve. We've got some work to do. We'll be working pretty hard between now and Bermuda, and we want to really try and take another step for Bermuda.
Okay, and then so we've got Bermuda, last regatta of this year. We've got Portsmouth next year. Apparently we've got Chicago lined up. How many regattas do you expect for next year?
I think next year will be really busy. You know, having seen what's on the potential venue list for next year, it'll be great. You know, we'll be in a lot of different markets, some iconic venues, and I think it'll be really, really good.
Okay, great, Jimmy. Thanks very much. Good luck with the rest of the series.
Cheers, thanks.
Where do you want me? Right, or do you want me a little closer? Yeah.
This is Jack Griffin from Cup Experience, together with Minister Grant Gibbons, Minister of Economic Development from Bermuda. Minister Gibbons, what did you think of the show here?
Well, I think it was fantastic. The city and obviously the whole organization did a terrific job. I'm not sure how the government managed to produce such good weather, but maybe we can learn something in Bermuda if they can find a way to guarantee that. But 2 great days of racing, obviously very different. We were told that Gothenburg would be a little closer to the Bermuda experience, a little more intimate and than Portsmouth was, and I think that certainly met expectations. The hospitality has been fantastic. And the racing was good too.
Now, what do we have to look forward to in October when we come to Bermuda for this? What sort of plans, or what are your expectations and hopes for that event?
Well, we hope it'll be a wonderful event. We hope lots of people will come. I can say for one thing for sure, the water will be a lot warmer. It was 30 degrees centigrade the last time I checked, and the water will be a little bluer as well. But hopefully you'll see some Bermuda hospitality, where if you've been to Bermuda, it's going to be organized for the World Series along Front Street. So we'll have the team bases on one end and the hospitality all the way along up to what's known as All Boys Point. Sir Russell says that they'll actually have the finish line in Hamilton Harbor, so it should be quite exciting with some of the racing out in the Great Sound, which will be a little different than the finals in 2017, which will be all out in the Great Sound. And of course, there the event village will be at what's known as the Royal Naval Dockyards, which is a historic site up in the west end of the island.
It could be pretty exciting with a couple of boats coming through Two Rock Passage. How do we handle that?
I think that's what everybody is waiting for, to see 2 or 3 boats trying to scream through this very narrow piece of water between 2 islands at the same time. But I think that'll add to the excitement. And I think Bermuda's getting very enthusiastic about this. I think you'll see a lot of Bermudians out. Sailing is certainly in our DNA. As an island people, we've been on the water for many, many years. So I think it's going to be very good for us.
We're certainly seeing a lot more interest and seeming enthusiasm from Bermudians viewed from the outside. What does it feel like in Bermuda, how the feeling, the emotions are developing?
Well, I think there was a tremendous amount of excitement in the beginning when, in December of last year, the Bermuda was announced as the host venue. We had a parade all the way from the airport with Sir Russell and myself holding the cup in a mini with children along the way and flags waving and everything else. I think people have been waiting to see how things build up to the first race. So I think this will be a nice dress rehearsal, a warm-up for the finals in 2017. But lots of people coming in. We're getting great visibility out of this. It was nice to see Bermuda and lots of places out on the water today. So I think all very good for us. And obviously we look forward to having as many people come as can do so.
Great. Well, thanks very much. We look forward to seeing you in Bermuda. I'll be there for sure, and I'm sure everybody will want to see the event there.
Great. Thanks, Jack. Okay.
Thanks. This is Jack Griffin from Cup Experience together with Dean Barker. Dean, a number 2 finish. You guys are always in the hunt. What got you up to second place in that last race?
Well, we felt, the decision today was, we needed to work on the starting and getting around Mark 1 in a better position. And both races we got to Mark 1 second, and first one, unfortunately, it just didn't work out for us. We couldn't quite capitalise on the position there, and we sort of ended up a bit further back in the field than we would have liked. But second race, we stuck to our guns and, turned it into a good result. So very happy.
You're the newest team, but you've got some of the most experienced crew with your guys from Jeremy Lomas and Derek Sayward and Chris Draper and Fuku. How is the crew team work doing, given that you've had so little time to actually sail this boat?
Well, that's one of our biggest challenges, is just sort of pulling it all together. But I think a little bit of experience does help, in terms of learning some of the lessons. We're certainly not the youngest team out there, but I think it's fantastic, to be able to get out there and sort of mix it up and some fantastic racing.
And we've got one more regatta left in the series this year. How do you get ready for Bermuda?
Well, it's tough because we don't really have a boat to go and test or train in, but it's one of those things where we just have to look at all the footage and debrief it really thoroughly. All of us are going to be now based in Bermuda, so we'll be able to sort of spend some time together there, just sort of developing the things which will be important to do well in the Bermuda World Series event. And I think we just got to keep trying to improve where we can.
We're looking forward to 2016. Do you think there'll be enough races, enough regattas for you guys to be able to claw your way up into the leaderboard and maybe to some of those bonus points? Will you have enough opportunities?
Yeah, we will. And the good thing for us is that after this next event, we'll get access to our boat to be able to go and do some training, and that's where we will start to make some decent gains, because up until now it's been limited, but we've got the opportunity to go and do some sailing.
Okay.
We're going to get him over to the opening ceremony.
Seeing an event in Japan.
Well, we hope very likely, but it's just really tough to it's tough to say, because it's a big commitment for any city, and this event in Portsmouth have been brilliant, and I'm sure Bermuda's going to be something else. But hopefully with the momentum that we sort of start to create, it'll make it more appealing for these other cities.
Great, thanks, Dean. Good luck the rest of the series.
Great, thank you very much. Cheers.
Hi, I'm Jack Griffin from Cup Experience, and what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about the 3 types of boats that are being used for the America's Cup in this cycle leading up to the racing in 2017. Right now, what we've got is the AC-45Fs. That's the one design class that are being used for the racing, and it's all fleet racing in the Louis Vuitton America's Cup World Series. Now, these boats are very, very similar to the AC-45s that raced in the America's Cup World Series in the lead up to the last America's Cup, but they've been changed by adding a foiling package. So the foiling package is obviously dagger boards that will allow them to fly, but it's also the control systems for those dagger boards. Since pretty much everything else on the boat is the same as it was for the last version, where do you get the energy to be able to control the rake of these dagger boards? Well, you get it from batteries. So there's actually a hydraulic system that's built into the hulls, and it can rake the dagger boards forward 7 degrees and aft 3 degrees, and that's what the helmsman and the crew can use to control the flight of the boat, the height and the stability of the boat when it's foiling. Now, these boats are so far only foiling downwind, and everybody that I've talked to said that that's what they expect. They don't expect to be foiling upwind with these boats. In fact, in marginal conditions like we had in the Gothenburg Louis Vuitton America's Cup World Series, on the second day of racing, the wind was so light that nobody ever got up on the foils. So these boats are the one design boats that are being used right now. Now, the helmsman has a set of push buttons that he can use to control the rake of the dagger boards. As I said, he can rake them aft 7 degrees, giving him more lift. The further aft he rakes the top of the dagger board, or he can rake them forward up to 3 degrees. Why would you do that? To create negative lift. They actually use the negative lift to pull the board down when they're in a maneuver and they need to get the board down quickly. The boards have to come up and down with a system of ropes and pulleys, so it's not hydraulically driven like on the AC-72s in the last America's Cup, and those are the one design AC-45Fs that are being raced in the America's Cup World Series with a crew of 5. Incredibly physical boats. In fact, the sailors will say that it's something like sailing a dinghy because the crew are so busy with the maneuvers that very often the helmsman winds up steering, controlling the wing trim, and having to do the trim of the rake of the dagger board. He gets to be really busy. Okay, let's talk about the America's Cup class. That's the boat that's going to be raced in 2017 in the match racing for the America's Cup qualifiers, or the Louis Vuitton. That's the boat that's going to be used in the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers, in other words, the round-robin series of match races, and also going on into the semifinals and the finals of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup Challenger playoffs, and then finally into the America's Cup match. All of that racing will be done in the America's Cup class boats. All of it will be match racing, and these are the boats that each team develops themselves. But most of it is one design. In fact, the hulls, the deck layouts, the shape of the wing from the wingspan to the chord to the sections of the wing, all specified to within 3 millimeters in most of the measurement conditions for the boats. What do the designers still have left to do? Well, they've got 3 areas where they can work. The foils, meaning the dagger boards and the rudders, the control systems, and a little bit of aerodynamic fairing that they're allowed to add to the boats. So let's talk about, first of all, the foils. It's up to the teams to come up with the shapes of the foils that they'll be using, and that's probably one of the areas where they'll spend most of their time and design energy. They have to deal with generating enough lift to be able to fly the boats, but they also have to deal with the very variable conditions in Bermuda. That means that sometimes they'll be in transitional situations where it'll be right at the limit of being able to foil. How will the designers come up with solutions for that? Because what they'll need to do is have boards that are not too draggy when they're sailing in displacement mode, and also boards that can generate a lot of lift to get them out of the water and get up on the foils in very light conditions. Another area where there's going to be a lot of design attention is going to be completely invisible to the fans, and that's the control systems. Everything that's going to be in the hulls, in the wings, to control the shape of the wing, the camber and the twist of the wing, and the control systems for the dagger boards. That'll be the systems that get them up, get them down, rake them, and cant them. All of those control systems will be hidden in the hulls. Now, one difference with the control systems compared to the AC-72s is that for the America's Cup class, the teams are actually allowed to design in 3 hydraulic accumulators. That means they can actually store hydraulic pressure, something they weren't allowed to do in the last America's Cup designs. But in those hydraulic accumulators, they have one that they can use to energize the system for controlling dagger board rake, and they have 2 accumulators for driving the boards up and down. The distances that you have to drive the boards up and down are obviously a lot greater than the couple of degrees that you're going to be raking the boards. That's why they get 2 accumulators for boards up and down and only 1 accumulator for the boards rake and cant. Now, there's no accumulators. Everything has to be driven manually for the hydraulic pressure that they need to trim the wing. We're going to still have the same type of system where there's a wing sheet or a traveler, really, in terms of its function, that will come over to a winch on the windward hull, and the wing trimmer, like with the AC-72, will work really closely with the helmsman to control the ride height of the boat by trimming the wing really aggressively. But all of the trimming of the wing shape, the amount of camber, the amount of twist, moding the wing for heavier or lighter conditions, all of that will be driven by hydraulics, and none of it will be visible to us from the outside. It'll be an area where probably our friends from Formula One who have been getting involved in the America's Cup, certainly at Land Rover BAR and also in some of the other teams, there's definitely the influence of companies that know how to build control systems that can do really fine tuning and do it really rapidly, because that's going to be one of the secrets to keeping the boats up on the foils and being able to do the maneuvers quickly. One big challenge that the teams will have, and now I'm talking about the sailing teams, is they'll have a certain amount of hydraulic pressure that will be available to them from the grinders. They'll have their control systems that have been optimized, but they're actually going to have to come up with a budget for oil pressure. How much oil pressure does it take to change the rake of the dagger board? How much oil pressure does it take to drive the boards up and down, to trim, to change the shape of the wing, the camber, the twist? Think of making a budget. I want to do a certain maneuver. How much oil pressure does it take to do that? They'll have to budget that because we've only got 4 guys on the handles, only 4 guys grinding, about a half a horsepower per man for a human on a set of grinding handles. That means you've only got about 2 horsepower to generate all that oil pressure that you need. The budget for oil pressure will be a big deal in the team's playbooks. So that's our America's Cup class and the design challenges for that. But wait, there's one more type of boat that we need to talk about for this cycle of this America's Cup, and that's what I call the AC-45X for experimental. All of the teams have their own names for them. Land Rover BAR calls theirs T1 or T2 for Test Boat 1 and Test Boat 2. Oracle Team USA calls their boat the Sport Boat, and Artemis Racing calls their boat Turbo. But basically what we're talking about here is a boat that's built on an AC-45 platform, and then wide open controls or wide open rules in terms of what they're allowed to do to it. So what do I mean by that? As long as the part of the hull that's in the water, the part below the waterline, is the same shape as an AC-45, one design, you can change anything else you want. So what have they changed? They've made the beams longer to increase the total beam of the boat and the righting moment. They've made the beams aerodynamic. They've completely changed the foil control systems. They've completely changed the foil control systems. They've added grinding pedestals, they've added wheel steering, and they've added a complete system of electronics to be able to take measurements. All of this is illegal on the one design AC-45, but on the test boats, this is the platform that they're using for developing their concepts for the America's Cup class, for the race boats that they'll be using in 2017. There's another thing that's really interesting to look at with these development boats, these test boats, and that is the crew playbook or the crew choreography. How do you do a tack, a jibe? What do you need to do at a mark rounding? And what we're seeing is that initially, for instance, if we look at T1, the test boat 1 from Land Rover BAR, the platform is almost exactly the same as the AC-45F. It's the same deck layout. The crew sits on top of the hull. The crew have 3 winches. It's tiller steering. There are no cockpits. But if we look at the sport boat from Oracle Team USA or the turbo boat from Artemis Racing, we see that they've installed cockpits, they've installed wheel steering, and they've installed grinding pedestals so that they can be testing the crew maneuvers and working out their playbooks for each of those maneuvers that they'll need to be doing in the racing. Now, the test boats that they're working on already are impressive pieces of machinery. In fact, Jimmy Spithill from Oracle Team USA has told me that their test boat, their sport boat, is already faster than their AC-72 was. And they're just a few months into testing the boat. They are going to launch their second test boat very shortly in September 2015 here. And so pretty soon, we're going to be seeing these boats doing incredible speeds. And the racing that we're going to see in Bermuda with the boats that come out of the development program from these test boats, the real America's Cup class boats that we'll see racing, is going to be really spectacular. But all through 2016, the only thing that we're going to have to look at in terms of the design and development phase, that's the test boats. So we'll be seeing Oracle Team USA with their sport boat, as they call it. We'll see Artemis Racing with their turbo boat. We're going to see SoftBank Team Japan taking over Oracle's first boat and using that as their test platform. And we'll be really curious to see what Ben Ainslie Racing comes up with. And we'll be really curious to see what Land Rover BAR comes up with for their test boat 2, T2, that they're expecting to launch in September. So let's keep an eye on all the design work that's going on, and we'll give you updates as things go on, and really have a lot of interesting things to take a look at as the teams work up their boats.